David Halloway loved dirt. As a professor of botany at the University of Arizona, dirt was his life. When he bought the house in the upscale neighborhood of Saguaro Springs, Phoenix, he didn't care about the marble countertops or the smart fridge. He cared about the half-acre backyard. David spent 2 years transforming that backyard. He didn't plant the generic, water-guzzling Bermuda grass that everyone else had. He planted a xeriscape, dry landscape. He planted rare agave, native milkweed for monarch butterflies, and ancient saguaro cacti. It was a thriving, sustainable ecosystem in the middle of a desert. It was his sanctuary, until the letter arrived. It was taped to his front door on a bright Tuesday afternoon. Bright orange paper. Notice of violation. HOA Board of Saguaro Springs. Violation. Unauthorized landscaping. Non-conforming plant life. Weeds in front visibility zone. Fine, $500. Remedy. Remove all unauthorized vegetation and install approved Bermuda sod within 14 days. David stared at the paper. Weeds? He whispered. Those are Asclepias subulata. They are essential for the ecosystem. He looked across the street. A woman was standing on her porch, watching him with binoculars. Brenda Vance, the HOA President. She was a woman who treated the neighborhood bylaws like religious scripture. She measured grass height with a ruler. She fined people if their trash cans were left out for 15 minutes past pickup time. David waved. Brenda didn't wave back. She just scribbled something in her notebook and went inside. David went to the monthly HOA meeting. It was held in the community clubhouse, a sterile room that smelled of floor wax and judgment. Brenda sat at the head of the table like a judge. The other board members, Carl, treasurer, and Susan, secretary, were her puppets. Mr. Halloway, Brenda said, looking over her glasses, you are contesting the fine? I am, David said, holding a stack of scientific papers. My garden is a certified wildlife habitat. It saves the community 40,000 gallons of water a year. The weeds you mentioned are native flora. They are ugly, Brenda cut him off. Our bylaws, section 4.2, clearly state, lawns must be uniform, green, and aesthetically pleasing. Your yard looks like a desert wasteland. It lowers property values. It is a desert, Brenda, David argued. We live in Arizona. Not in Saguaro Springs, she smiled icily. Here we live in civilization. You have 7 days left to pave it over and put in grass, or we will hire a contractor to do it for you and bill you triple the cost. You can't do that, that's trespassing. Read your contract, David, Brenda said, tapping the thick binder. When you bought the house, you signed the C&Rs. We have the right to enter your property to remedy noncompliance. Meeting adjourned. David went home fuming. He wasn't going to destroy 2 years of work for some green plastic grass. He decided to ignore them. He thought they were bluffing. He was wrong. David came home from the university on a Friday. He saw the trucks before he saw his house. Vance Landscaping and Removal. His heart stopped. He ran to the backyard. 3 men were there with chainsaws and excavators. They were tearing out his agaves. They were ripping up the milkweed. A bulldozer was flattening his meticulously designed soil mounds. Stop! David screamed, running toward them. Get off my property! One of the workers, a burly man chewing tobacco, stopped. Work order from the HOA, buddy. Talk to the lady. Brenda was standing on the sidewalk holding a clipboard. She was smiling. You missed the deadline, David. We are fixing the eyesore. David looked at his garden. It was gone. The rare cacti he had nurtured from seedlings, chopped into pieces. The butterfly habitat, crushed under truck tires. It wasn't just landscaping. It was a massacre. You'll get the bill next week, Brenda called out. $4,500 for removal, plus $2,000 for the new sod installation. David stood in the wreckage of his sanctuary. He felt a tear slide down his cheek. But then, something inside him shifted. The sadness evaporated, replaced by a cold, scientific curiosity. He looked at the truck logo again. Vance Landscaping. Brenda's last name was Vance. Conflict of interest. David walked into his house. He didn't yell. He didn't throw a rock at her window. He went to his study. He opened his laptop. "Okay, Brenda," he whispered. "You want to play by the rules? Let's look at the biology of your destruction." David wasn't a lawyer, but he was a researcher. He knew how to dig for data. First, he pulled the public records for Vance Landscaping LLC. Owner, Tyler Vance, Brenda's son. The HOA bylaws strictly prohibited board members from awarding contracts to family members without a blind bidding process. David checked the meeting minutes for the last 3 years. No bids. Every contract, mowing, tree trimming, pool cleaning, went to Vance Landscaping. Brenda was funneling community money, roughly $150,000 a year, directly into her son's pocket. That was a felony, embezzlement. But David didn't want to just arrest her. That was too easy. He wanted to destroy her world. He wanted her to feel the same helplessness he felt when his garden died. He needed a trap she couldn't find her way out of. David went back to his destroyed backyard. He sifted through the soil, and then he found it, buried deep under the shade of an old mesquite tree, which the landscapers had missed. There was a burrowing owl, Athene cunicularia. The owl peeked its head out. It looked terrified. David smiled. The burrowing owl is a species protected under the Migratory Bird Treaty Act of 1918. It is a federal crime to disturb their habitat. But one owl wasn't enough. He needed a fortress. David devised a plan. He wouldn't just restore his garden. He would turn his property into a federally protected biological station. He spent the next month quietly working at night. He installed bat boxes high up on his roof eaves to attract the lesser long-nosed bat, endangered species. He replanted specific host plants for the Sonoran desert tortoise. And then he waited. 2 months later, the grass Brenda had forced him to install was dead. David hadn't watered it once. Instead, his yard was now full of weird boxes and ugly bushes. Brenda knocked on his door. She handed him a legal envelope. "Notice of foreclosure," she said gleefully. "You haven't paid the $6,500 bill for the landscaping work. We have placed a lien on your house. If you don't pay in 30 days, the HOA will auction your home to recover the debt." David took the envelope. "I'm not paying for illegal work, Brenda, and I'm not paying your son's company." Brenda's eye twitched. "Excuse me?" "I know about Tyler," David said calmly. "I know about the kickbacks. I know you bought that new Mercedes with HOA funds." Brenda stepped closer. Her voice dropped to a hiss. "You can't prove anything. The board supports me. The lawyers support me. You are just a broke professor with a dead lawn. I'm going to take your house, David, and I'm going to turn it into a parking lot for the clubhouse." "Try it," David said. The next day, Brenda sent her son's crew back. "Clean it up again," she ordered. "Tear down those ugly wooden boxes on the roof. Dig up those holes in the ground." The crew fired up the bulldozers. David was watching from his window. He picked up his phone. He didn't call the police. The police say it's a civil matter. He called the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, USFWS. "Agent Miller," David said, "this is Professor Halloway. I have an active destruction of a federally protected habitat in progress. Species involved: Leptonicterus yerba bueni, endangered bat, and Athene cunicularia, protected owl. Yes, heavy machinery is involved. I have video evidence." "We are on our way," the agent said. "Do not let them leave." Tyler Vance was halfway up a ladder, trying to rip down a bat box, when 3 black SUVs screeched into the cul-de-sac. Men in tactical vests marked "Federal Agent" jumped out. "Freeze!" Agent Miller screamed, pointing a badge and a hand on his holster. at Tyler. "Get off the ladder! Step away from the structure!" Tyler panicked. He almost fell off the roof. "It's just a birdhouse, man. My mom told me to take it down." Brenda ran out of her house screaming, "What is going on? Who are you people? This is a private community." Agent Miller walked up to her. He was not a mall cop. He was a federal officer who dealt with poachers and traffickers. "Ma'am, step back. You are interfering with a federal investigation." "Investigation?" Brenda shrieked. "I am the HOA President. That man," she pointed at David, "is harboring vermin." "That vermin," Agent Miller said coldly, "is the lesser long-nosed bat. It is an endangered species. Disturbing its roosting site carries a fine of up to $50,000 per violation and up to 1 year in federal prison. Your crew just destroyed a burrowing owl nest. That's another $15,000. Brenda turned pale. I didn't know." David walked out onto his porch. He was holding a file folder. "She knew," David said. "I sent a certified letter to the board 3 weeks ago, notifying them of the protected species on the property. She ignored it. That proves willful intent." Agent Miller looked at Brenda. "Willful intent? That moves it from a fine to a felony." While the federal agents were seizing Tyler's trucks as evidence of the crime, another car pulled up. It was a sedan with state government plates. The state auditor. David smiled. He had sent the financial records to the state attorney general's office a month ago. The auditor walked up to Brenda, who was already trembling in front of the federal agents. "Brenda Vance?" the auditor asked. "What now?" she cried. "I have a warrant to seize the financial records of the Saguaro Springs HOA. We have evidence of embezzlement, tax fraud, and illegal contracting with immediate family members." Brenda looked at David. David was sipping iced tea on his porch. "You," she whispered, "you did this." "No, Brenda," David called out. "You did this. You violated the ecosystem. I just let nature take its course." The fall of Brenda Vance was spectacular. The federal charges, the EPA and U.S. Fish and Wildlife fined the HOA $250,000 for the destruction of protected habitats. Since the HOA didn't have that kind of money because Brenda stole it, the fine fell personally on the board members who authorized the work. The embezzlement. Brenda was arrested for stealing $450,000 over 5 years. Tyler went to jail for contracting fraud. They lost their house to pay for the legal fees. The HOA, with the bank accounts frozen and the liability insurance canceled due to criminal acts by the board, the entire homeowners association went bankrupt. A judge ordered the dissolution of the Saguaro Springs HOA. The neighborhood was free. No more fines. No more grass measurements. 6 months later, David Halloway stood in his backyard. It was beautiful. The agaves were replanted. The milkweed was blooming. Above him, in the twilight, a colony of bats swooped down from the restored boxes to eat the mosquitoes. His neighbor, Mr. Henderson, walked by. Henderson used to hate David's yard. Now Henderson was planting cactus too, because he didn't have to water it. "Evening, David," Henderson waved. "Quiet night." "Very quiet," David smiled. He looked across the street at Brenda's old house. It was sold to a nice young couple. They had painted the door bright purple. Brenda would have hated it. David took a sip of his drink. Sometimes the grass isn't greener on the other side. Sometimes the other side is just a protected habitat waiting to destroy you.